Welcome to this virtual class. Our topic is fire hazards. Yes, okay. Okay, our learning objectives are, at the end of this presentation, you will be able to recognize elements of the fire triangle in different situations, analyze the different causes of fire, and observe precautionary measures and proper procedures in addressing a fire incident. Okay. So, common natin marinig itong word na fire, no? But let us define this. This is produced through a process that include the interaction of its components. So there are three components of a fire. These components would interact, no, to produce a fire. The fuel, heat, and oxidizing agent. And the fire becomes a hazard when it obstructs, delay, hinder, or interfere with firefighting operations and the safeguarding of life and property. Okay, so as defined by RA 10-121, fire hazard is any condition or act which increases or may cause an increase in probability of the occurrence of fire. So there are measures to prevent fire and proper procedures in addressing a fire incident. That's why we have this Bureau of Fire, no? Sila yung in charge ng fire hazards. And alam natin March is Fire Prevention Month. So what are the three elements of the fire triangle in different situations? Okay, so fire triangle identifies three components of fire, which are fuel, oxidizing agents, so andoon yung oxygen, and then heat. Okay, so isahin natin ito. Alam natin ng fuel, no? Saka yung mga combustible material. So, ito yung material or substance being oxidized or burned in the combustion process. In scientific terms, the fuel is in a combustion reaction is called reducing agent. And of course, walang chemical reaction na mangyayari kung walang oxidizing agent. So one must be, there should be a reducing agent and oxidizing agent to complete a reaction. And some examples of fuel source are woods, paper, cloth, trash, plastics, flammable liquids such as gasoline, and others. For oxidizing agents, these are those materials that yield oxygen and other oxidizing gases during the course of a chemical reaction. There should be a chemical reaction. Okay, so there is an exothermic reaction to have a fire. So exo meaning heat is given off to the surrounding. Next is heat. So this is the third component, no? So heat is a form of energy that may describe as a condition of matter in motion. This is caused by the movement of molecules. So heat is a very necessary or energy necessary to increase temperature of the fuel to a point where sufficient vapors are given off for ignition to occur. And this is essential of fire elements. So a fire cannot ignite unless it has certain amount of heat. And burning cannot continue without heat either. So an example of heat sources are stoves, gas stove man or electric stove man yun, no? Heating appliances, lighted objects, and damaged electrical wiring. So the three components and chemical reaction must be present at the same time to produce fire. So an alternative to the fire triangle model is the fire tetrahedron, tetra meaning 4. So added by 1, which is chemical reaction, So oxygen, fuel, heat, and of course, the chemical reaction. Fires involving metals such as titanium, lithium, and magnesium have a chemical reaction that requires a different approach for a firefighters. Okay, so there are stages of a fire development. Una, ignition, first stage. So this is a period when the elements of the fire come together and combustion begins. Ignition, from the word ignite, no? Kung baga, yung pagsindi, no? And second is growth. This is a stage when the plume begins to form above the burning fuel, and it begins to draw or entertain air from the surrounding space into the column. And it will continue if enough fuel and oxygen are available. Third is flashover. So this is when the gases generated during this time are heated to their ignition temperature by the radiant energy from the gas layer at the ceiling. Okay. So next is fully developed fire. Fully developed fire. Of course, when all combustibles or combustible materials in the compartment are involved. So the burning fuel in the compartment are releasing the maximum amount of heat. Take note, maximum amount of heat possible for the available fuel packages and producing large volume of fire gases. So kung maabutan ito ng mga firefighters, kung naka-stage 4 na mahirap na i-recover yung property. At sana walang na-trap, no? And 5 is decay. So it is when the fire consumes the available fuel in the compartment. So the rate of heat release begins to decline. So yung heat begins to decline. No? The amount of fire diminishes and the temperature begins to decline. Okay, so ito yung diagram ng stages of a fire development. So una, ang ignition, and then next, the growth, and flashover, and fully developed. Ito, fully developed fire. As time increases, temperature also increases. So pagdating dito, decay na. No? Tapos na yung sunog. Patapos na yung sunog. So what are different causes of fire? So maraming causes yung fire, but then depende ito sa place na mangyayari. Some causes of fire in the school may not be true to workplaces or to houses. So causes of fire in school, first is intentional fires. So these are set by students or staff of the school and obviously not be predicted. Most of the time, they are started in trash cans or in piles of garbage because it is the easiest thing to light. Next is cooking equipment. So because of schools often have a lot of cooking equipment, especially in the home economics, no? There are many potential problems that can come from them. It could be a small grease fire or a gas fire. And heat sources fires. So there is also the potential of having something come about due to someone playing in or around the heating source of the school. Things can easily catch fire with that much heat, and whether it is intentional or not does not matter. Next is heating equipment. Heating equipment fires. So these are started due to something faulty near the heating source or the equipment. Small spark sparks can easily cause bigger flames to grow. So due to that heat around the equipment, it will not take long to start a bigger fire. Okay. Next, electrical fires. No? So these are very common when something shorts out and is near something that can easily spark and catch fire. So these fires can then cause other surrounding areas to catch fire, especially depending on the material used in the building and what is around it. So especially improper use of extension cords, extension wires. Next is the faulty equipment. So this is para sa mga workplaces, no? Especially sa mga industries, yung sa mga companies, no? So faulty equipment. So defective electrical equipment such as sa mga paggamit ng wires, no? Faulty equipment can overheat and cause sparks. Next is clutter. So lack of consistent cleaning, leaving the building untidy and cluttered. Also, may mga combustible on-site. Maraming mga material na pwedeng madali lang masunog, no? Combustible materials such as papers, wood, cardboard will often accumulate in many workplaces, and if allowed to build up, can contribute a significant amount of fuel to any fire that may start. Then next, we have this human error. So from using equipment incorrectly, yun bang hindi ini-report na may problem yung machinery, no? To even leaving cooking food unattended. Human error yan. Okay. Next, the arson. So arson is a criminal act. No? Arson makes up a large percentage of fires caused on business premises. So causes of fire in houses. Sa bahay, ano ang causes ng fire, no? Marami. Una, cooking equipment. So yung pots and pans can overheat and cause a fire very easily if the person cooking gets distracted and leaves cooking unattended. So it is very important na may focus doon, no? Kung kayo ay magluluto, focus kayo sa pagluluto, no? Okay, next is heating and smoking in bedrooms, no? Para ito sa merong mga smokers na kasama sa bahay. So dapat hindi mag-smoke inside the bedroom kasi maraming pwedeng masunog doon, no? With that piece of cigarette butt na hindi pa properly na patay yung apoy, no? So pwede yan mapagmulan ng sunog. Next, electrical equipment. So an electrical appliance such as toaster can start a fire if it is faulty or has a frayed cord. Circuit overloading with double adapter plugs can cause a fire from overused electricity. And even extension cords can also be a fire hazard if not used properly. Sa bahay ito, pwede mangyayari. Next is candles. So if left unattended, especially pag galing sa walang kuryente, no? Tapos gumamit ng candle. So left unattended, they can cause a room to easily burst into flames. And another, we have curious children. So itong mga batang curious, no? So dapat ma-orient about fire safety. At ilayo yung mga pwedeng magamit nila out of curiosity, like matches, no? Yung mga lighters, and even yung mga outlets, no? Dapat sarado. And pati yung sa paggamit ng gas tank, no? To see what would happen if they set fire to an object out of curiosity nga sa mga bata. And causes of fire in houses, faulty wiring, barbecue. So yung magluto ng barbecue, pag hindi yan ma-manage, no, can cause fire. Flammable liquids like alcohols, acetones, no, Madali lang yan masunog. Lighting, so mga lampshades and light fittings can build up heat if they are very close to light globes. So the most common causes of fire according to Caraga Bureau of Fire Prevention, common nila na nakita na cause ng fire, first is electrical. Usually pag may sunog at tatanungin ano ang cause, sabihin nila electrical. So meaning yung mga faulty wirings na mga overloading, okay, mga octopus connections. So if there are actually faulty wiring, there would have been no electric power from the very start when you switch on the circuit breaker or the main service protective equipment. So what actually happens is that the wires or circuit becomes overloaded due to increase in the load the circuit carries without changing the size of the wire. So may mga standard kasi na kinakailangan sa house wiring. At kung hindi yun masunod, like for example, kailangan ng makapal na wire na kinakailangan pero siguro kapos sa budget, gumagamit ng smaller diameter wire, no? So kung yun ay maraming load, maraming isasaksak doon na wire, that can cause overload, no? So una ma-melt yung cover niya, then mapagmula ng fire. So the subsequent effect will be weakening of the insulation or insulator of the wire due to overheating, no? And can cause additional load. Okay, again, sa electrical, pwedeng faulty wiring, pwede na mga octopus connections, mga overloading. Next is incendiarism or arson. So arson is the criminal act of deliberately setting fire to property. So it pertains to the malicious burning of property using certain chemicals, bombs, etc., and cause fire to start. Okay. Next, open flames. Unattended burning. Candles, kerosene, no, that are placed near flammable combustible material is the fire waiting to happen. Unattended cooking causes most fire in the homes that occur in the kitchen. Oil or fat starting to smoke is near the combustion point and can ignite violently. Okay, so LPG. So LPG is for liquefied petroleum gas. So liquid ito inside the container, but then pag lalabas yan sa nozzle, maging gaseous state when released, no? So pinaliquefied para ma-stored economically and transported easily. Now, alam natin na kung may chemistry tayo, alam natin that gas are highly compressible and expandable, no? Kaya hindi puno yung nasa loob ng container. May allowance ito for expansion kasi ang gas madali lang mag-expand or madali lang mag-contract, no? Due to change in temperature. So at high temperature, madaling mag-expand. No, gas would expand. At low temperature, contracts, no? So that is why hindi ito puno, may allowance ito para sa expansion. But then, kung sobrang init at saka hindi ma-hold ng container, ang possibility niyan, masira yung container. There is gas explosion, no? Due to expansion of gas. So hindi lang yung sunog, no, kasi kung may gas tapos at magsindik kayo, then start yun ng fire. But then kung walang sisindi, makapag-suffocate din ito, no? Yung gaseous form ng LPG. Okay, so LPG is colorless, tasteless, and odorless, but an odorizing agent called ethyl mercaptan is introduced to it so that leaks can easily be detected. Kasi pag colorless, tasteless, odorless ang LPG, hindi natin alam kung may leaking ang tangke. So that is why dinagdagan niya ng odorizing agent para malalaman natin yung baho ng LPG. Next is fireworks. So these are beautiful pyrotechnical display resulting from the occurrence of certain oxidation reduction reaction. The substances that produce fireworks are hazardous materials. This must be stored, transported, handled as oxidizers, and displayed by experienced and knowledgeable professionals. So implementation of prohibition in this manufacture, handling, and use should be strictly complied with everyone as fire safety precaution. So sa amin wala nang fireworks dito, no? Kahit na sa mga Pasko at New Year. Next is spontaneous ignition. So this occurs as a result of chemical reaction within the material. And static electricity, this involves the movement of electrons within two objects in contact with each other. So electrical charges are produced on the objects when they are separated. So if the charge builds up, it will develop enough energy to jump as a spark to a nearby grounded or less highly charged objects. Next is smoking. So careless smoking, especially in beds, no? And take note that smoking is the fourth leading cause of fire in the Philippines. Fourth. So what are the precautionary measures and proper procedures in addressing fire incident? Una, we need to define or to understand what is fire safety. So this is a condition of being safe from the risk or danger of fire. There's also the quality or state of not presenting or involving risk or danger of fire. Safety. So, okay. So when we say fire safety measure should be an essential part of risk management. So there should be a prevention plan, must be disseminated and drilled. Okay? So may mga precautionary measures tayo. First, get an alarm, fire alarm system. So magpa-install ng alarm system. So sa mga schools and sa mga establishment, requirement ito para sa fire certificate. Hoping na nasa bahay din ito, no? Yung mga smoke detector, no? Kinakailangan yun for monitoring. Okay. Another, we have installed fire extinguisher and fire blankets. So requirement din ito sa mga businesses, sa mga eskwelahan, and kailangan din ito sa bahay, no? Everyone in the family who is capable of using fire extinguishers and fire blankets should familiarize themselves with how to operate them. Kasi kahit na meron kayong fire extinguisher tapos walang marunong gagamit ng fire extinguisher, then it's useless, no? Dapat kung pwede lahat ng member ng family, all members of the family should know how to use and to operate it. Next, practice safe cooking, no? Safe cooking, lalo na sa mga nagaluto sa kusina, no? Okay, so never leave your task unattended kung nagaluto kayo. Especially pag yung mga nagprito kayo, no? Masarap sa inyo yung pritong manok, no? Kung oily, madali lang yun kuha ng flame at saka pagmula ng sunog, no? Never leave a stove on or put combustible objects, lalo na yung mga washcloth, no, near it. Remember that the kitchen is the primary source of house fires. So Keep watch on the fireplace. So wala man siguro tayo nito kasi tag-init, tag-ulan lang man tayo, no? So meron ding safety measure pag merong fireplace. Teach children about fire safety. So kung may mga bata kayo, no? So kailangan ninyong i-orient sila. Kayo ang mag-orient kasi meron kayong DRRR. So prevent juvenile fire setting by teaching your children safety rules regarding matches, candles, lighters, electric outlets, and heat or flame-producing appliances. And keep potentially risky objects away from children's reach. Don't leave cigarette lit. So pang third time na ito, no? So if you're a smoker, make sure that you put out cigarettes before leaving them behind. And huwag ninyong simulan ang pagsigarilyo kung hindi pa kayo nakatikim. Na? Appliance and power sources. So treat heat-producing appliances like stove, portable heaters, dryers, oven, grills with care. And there should be a regular check-up, especially sa mga electrical cords, no? Outlets, and power equipment. If there is sign of damage, then ipaayos na. And set fire drills. No, alam natin yung fire drills no sa eskwelahan. So dapat din merong mga fire drill yung family members. And there should be a common place na puntahan ninyo kung sakaling merong ganitong mga pangyayari. Now, okay, ano ang purpose na meron kayong common place na pupuntahan kung sakaling merong sunog? Para madali lang ninyong ma-identify or ma-count yung mga family members at saka, for example, considering may missing, merong na-trap doon sa loob, no? Dapat may isang place kayo na doon kayo magkikita-kita para alam ninyo kung sino ang kulang at matulungan agad, no? Also, practice how best to escape in a smoke-engulfed home by crawling towards the nearest exit to avoid inhaling dangerous fumes. Kasi bahay ninyo ito, alam ninyong pinaka-madali na exit point, no? Never re-enter the house to retrieve belongings. Okay, belongings lang yan, things lang yan. Importante yung life, no? And stop, drop, and roll. If ever your clothing catches fire, you should stop, drop, and roll to extinguish the flames. While doing so, cover your face to prevent likelihood of facial injuries. Mahirap na kung matamaan yung mata. Okay, how to call the fire department? First is to speak slowly and clearly para marinig kayo doon sa other line, no? Next, identify yourself to the operator. You give your name, your address, your contact number kasi i-confirm nila yon. Baka may hindi totoo na information, no? And then give the whole address of your home, including specific landmarks. Say what is on fire. Example, a two-story house. And explain if anyone is trapped and what room they are in para matulungan. And fire extinguisher theory is the extinguishment of fire based on an interruption of one or more of the essential elements in the combustion process. So fire can be extinguished by removing one or two elements of fire. So it can be through, first, smothering or reducing or limiting the amount of oxygen. Second, cooling or reducing the temperature below the fire point. Third, starving or taking out the fuel, because fuel is the food of the fire. And then fourth, inhibition or breaking the chain rule or inhibiting the formation of flames, but bear in mind that If you use this, reignition is likely to occur. And how to use a fire extinguisher. So meron tayo dito parts ng fire extinguisher na usually magamit are the handles. Itong handle na to, no? Ito dito. And then the safety pin and the nozzle. Okay, yan lang ang mga importanteng parts na yung pressure gauge para yan sa gas inside indicator. So first is to grab the fire extinguisher. Kunin niyo yan kung may sunog, no? Pull the pin at the top of the extinguisher that keeps the handle from being accidentally pressed. Next is aim the nozzle toward the base of the fire. Fourth, stand approximately 8 feet away. So estimate nyo 8 feet. So 8 rulers away from the fire and squeeze the handle to discharge extinguisher. So if you release the handle, the discharge will stop. And sweep the nozzle back and forth at the base of the fire. At the base sa fire. Hindi doon sa fire mismo sa taas, no? 'Di ba? Yung fire kung fire ito, for example, wag dito niyo itama yung extinguisher kundi dito sa base, no? Pinagmulan ng fire mismo. So after the fire appears to be out, watch it carefully since it may reignite. Okay, mabuti sana kung meron tayong face-to-face kasi merong mga training na ganito. No? Okay. Next, may mga iba't ibang compostable materials. So mga firefighters din, meron din silang mga alam nila paano madali na ma-put out yung fire. Wood, paper, plastic, soft furnishing, etc. can be extinguished by foam, water, wet chemical, CO2, dry paper. No? Yung CO2 para sa flammable liquids, petrol, oil, etc. and dry powder. Flammable gases like propane, butane, methane. So dry powder. And electrical apparatus, computers, phone chargers, no? Basta kuryente, CO2 at saka dry powder. And cooking oils and fats, wet chemical. Okay, so kung yun nga, kung electrical, notice na wala dyan yung water. Okay, for our lesson summary, fire is produced through process that includes the interaction of its components. So what are these components? The fuel, the heat, and oxidizing agents. And fire becomes a hazard when it obstructs, delay, hinder, or interfere with firefighting operations and the safeguarding of life and property. RA 10-121 define fire hazards as any condition or act which increases or may cause an increase in probability of the occurrence of fire. So, a fire triangle identifies the three components of fire: fuel, oxidizing agents, and heat. Alam natin what is fuel, no? So, a material or substance being oxidized or burned in a combustible process or combustion process. And oxidizing agents are those materials that yield oxygen or other oxidizing gases during the course of a chemical reaction. Heat is a form of energy, so may be described as a condition of matter in motion caused by movement of molecules. So yung mga heat sources are stove, heating appliances, lighted objects, and damage of electrical wirings. So the three components must be present at the same time to produce a fire. So an alternative to the fire triangle model is the fire tetrahedron, meaning tetra meaning 4. So, nadagdagan niya ng chemical reaction. So what are the stages of fire development? Una, ignition, the next growth, next flashover, and then fully developed fire, and then decay. At huwag niyo kalimutan yung fire safety para sa inyo at para sa inyong family and even sa community ninyo. So sa family, there must be a common place para doon kayo magkikita-kita para madali niyo ma-account kung may kulang ba sa family. Kung meron bang na-trap, no, inside a house, kung in case merong fire. And alam na niyo how to call your emergency number para sa tulong, no, sa mga firefighters. Okay, so that's all for today.